Hello, I'm Emmy Victor, host of our new series, Investing in America, sponsored by the American Investment Council. Over the next few weeks, we'll tell you all about the private equity industry. It grows businesses, employs over 8 million Americans, and improves communities across all 50 states. And yet, there are lots of misconceptions about private equity. Yes, this industry delivers strong, long-term returns to investors, but it also supports millions of American workers in all sectors, provides a secure retirement for teachers, firefighters, and other public servants, and makes annual investments of hundreds of billions of dollars in thousands of companies. So there's a lot to unpack here, and there's no one better to explain it all than Drew Maloney, president of the American Investment Council. Drew, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me today, Emmy.
So what does the AIC, the American Investment Council, do?
Emmy, we are the leading advocacy and research arm for private equity here in Washington, and we represent an industry that supports more than 8 million jobs, 35,000 American companies, and strengthens millions of pension retirement plans around the country.
The AIC just released its annual Top States and District report. It ranks the U.S. communities that receive the most private equity investment. What are some of the big takeaways from this report? Where does private equity invest?
Well, I think the big takeaway is that we invest across America, and we invest in every sector of America, whether it's energy, retail, restaurants. Every sector in the economy gets private equity investment dollars. And I think another really important part about this report is that we invest in nearly half of the top 20 investment districts or minority districts. For example, Congressman Danny Davis in Chicago, Illinois, his district received $7 billion for 56 different businesses in his district.
Well, when some people think of private equity, they think it's focused on large investments in companies in major cities. Is that accurate?
Well, actually, most of the investments that we make are in small and medium-sized businesses. For example, there's a business in New York called Tate's Bake Shop, and it was started by Kathleen King when she was 21 years old, and she grew the business over years but wanted to expand it. So she partnered with private equity, and private equity came in and partnered with her and gave her capital, worked with marketing, online sales, and was able to expand the business to today you can buy Tate's cookies in almost any grocery store across America. And another example of a company that most people probably haven't heard of, it's called N2Y in Huron, Ohio. And it's a special education software company. Again, another family business that wanted to expand. So what they did is they partnered with private equity, brought in sales experts, brought more capital in, and they are now one of the leading software providers for special education in the United States.
So what does the reality of these investments in smaller businesses and communities say about the perception of the industry?
Well, what it tells me is that we have to do a better job of telling our story. I mean, if you walk down any main street in America today, you will see private equity all around. Whether you're grabbing a cup of coffee at Dunkin', whether you're taking an Uber to work, or you're grabbing lunch at Panera Bread, maybe you stop by the True Value hardware store, or you spend the night at a Hilton hotel. All of these businesses were supported by private equity, and it's incumbent upon us to do a better job of telling Americans and public policymakers about those stories.
We are approaching an election this November, and lawmakers are always looking for different ways to stand out. So what can Congress and other policymakers do to facilitate private equity investments in businesses and communities that need capital?
Well, what every business in every sector needs is they need certainty. So that's what we're looking for. So what we are going to do at the American Investment Council next year is we are going to launch private equity across America, where we are going to bring policymakers into these facilities on Main Street so they can see and feel what private equity is doing in their communities.
Private equity was the focus of a big headline in June. The Labor Department recently released guidelines allowing private equity to be offered to employer-sponsored retirement plans such as 401ks. How is this going to help average Americans?
Well, over the past 20 years, private equity has been the best performing investment. And historically, private equity had only pension funds and wealthy Americans had access to these types of investments. So what the Department of Labor did, it allows for 401k managers to invest some portion of your 401k plan in private equity. Thereby, you get the same access as everyone else to improved returns over the long term. And this will ultimately help all Americans benefit from a richer retirement system.
And Drew, it's been a tough time for businesses lately due to the coronavirus pandemic. What role can private equity play in helping the American economy reopen and recover from the crisis?
Well, yes, Emmy, and I think we have a very critical role to play as the economy recovers. And if you look at what we invested in the first quarter, $64 billion in more than 1,000 American companies. You will see that we will continue to do that investment that we did last year, just as this report summarizes, that we're going to continue to do that for years to come.
Well, Drew, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having me today, Emmy.
And I hope you all join us next time for our series, Investing in America.